A few years ago, I decided to upgrade the home system here, and for Christmas I gave my wife this stout handle and a nitrogen tank to go with it. You're probably thinking, well, this guy's pretty lucky that he can give his wife a stout handle as a Christmas gift. Well, last Christmas she outdid me one extra step and got me this beer engine. Now, we always enjoy our cask ale, and I was excited to put it into use, but quickly determined that there was no documentation at all that came with this, and I wasn't quite sure how to set it up in the home environment so that I could have cask beer on hand all the time. So I thought I'll put together a little video and share with you what I learned. But first we'll start with a little overview of the history of the cask beer and how it's really done in the world's brew pubs.
Now, real cask condition ale, or real ale as it's often referred, has a list of policies and procedures that must be followed in order to qualify for that term. Well, again, I was trying to set up something at home that I could enjoy my cask conditioned beer or beer through my beer engine at any point in time, always available and always on hand. And so in order to achieve this, I had to violate some of these rules. So here's a slide that basically shows how the cask is set up. The fat cask, also referred to as a firkin, is set up. The tap is hammered through the keystone, and on top you have a shive with a peg that can be removed to allow air into the keg while the beer flows out. Now, of course, letting air into the keg is going to cause a problem by oxidizing the beer. So in other words, if you don't drink all of this in one setting, you're going to have a lot of air sitting on top of your beer and ultimately going to ruin it. So it'd be nice to have a way to actually bring CO2 in to fill the headspace and not have the beer exposed to the oxidizing properties that you're going to have if you have the traditional setup. So here we can take a look at what simple picture of what it might look like. Also, the beer can be served through the tap itself, as shown in the photo earlier, or it can be pumped through the beer engine, as you see this guy doing here. This is the setup that I wanted to implement at home. Either way, you're going to come out with a beautiful, creamy glass of ale served through your cask system. Here's a picture of the beer engine that my wife gave me for Christmas. This is all how it came. There was no box that it was in, no instructions on how to hook things up, but essentially it was not that difficult. You'll notice the two little hoses on there. Well, that's for a water jacket that goes around a pint-sized glass that actually holds beer up at the engine head. Later I'll show you a water reservoir and recirculation system that keeps that ale nice and cold while it's waiting to be pumped out. So the point was to take this engine, enclose it in a nice beautiful cask box, and have that mounted on my kegerator. Now, as much as my wife's a good sport around the beer, clearly this type of approach in our home brewery would not go over too well. And this is what most people visualize when they think of tapping that cask ale. So let me get over to our system and we'll talk about how I implemented this.
So let's go over how that's implemented here on the home system. First off, I have the CO2 bottle here to provide the gas to fill the headspace of the keg as I draw beer from it. Now keep in mind we want to make sure this is very low pressure so the beer does not carbonate, and that the pressure is low enough that it doesn't actually just push the beer right through the line, through the pump, and out the faucet. This can happen because there's really no way of shutting off the pump, and if you put enough pressure on it, it'll just push the beer right through. So to assist with this, I have the breather. And the breather is essentially a fixed low rate regulator that allows the CO2 to come to the regulator and only allows it to bypass into the keg as the beer is drawn. You can see here I have arrows indicating the airflow direction because, again, there's no documentation that comes with this, but it's very easy by simply sucking on one end to determine which way the air is allowed to flow and then connect it accordingly. Using basic quick disconnects, just like you would with a CO2 system, I have the CO2 feed into the keg, and then again, just coming off of the normal beer outlet, I have the low pressure connection up to the beer pump itself. CO2 bottle set for about 5 pounds. The breather regulates to that level, so again, no carbonation and no just flowing of the beer. Now this back here is the pump in my cooling reservoir that circulates cold water through the water jacket that's around the pint glass up in the engine itself. So there you have it. There's my beer engine set up here at home. It's a way of having cask beer available for your friends at any point in time, and arguably may not fall within the definitions of real beer, but anytime you can have your friends over, pull a nice glass of beer for them off the beer engine. I don't think you're going to have any complaints.